Hello everybody, a very warm welcome to the Hungaroring. We are here for rounds 10, 11 and 12 of the 2017 FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Sunny skies overhead. Yesterday we had very mixed weather. It was very hot but very, very humid. There was rain in the air, but then it cleared up and it was quite sunny, a bit like it is now. Sunny, cloudy but very, very humid. And then 25 minutes before qualifying for the Formula 3 drivers, a huge storm came overhead and we had a huge amount of rain, lots of surface water, barely any time for the teams to set the cars up for the wet other than putting the wet Hankook tyres on. And so we had a wet qualifying session. Today, the wet weather has been replaced with wind. It's going to be sunny. There may be some rain later today, but not for the Formula 3 race. And there is the driver who is on pole position, having picked up his first 2 wins of the season at the Pau GP around the streets of France. It's Maxie Gunther, who was very impressive yesterday, the Prema Power Team driver, in wet conditions. He wasn't so quick, importantly, in the free practice dry sessions. He was only 7th quickest overall there. Jake Hughes is second on the grid. He actually qualified 3rd. The driver that qualified 2nd in the wet yesterday was Joey Morrison, but he carries a 3-place grid penalty for an incident behind the safety car at Pau. So he's been put back to 5th on the grid. The Indian driver, Jayan Daravala, is going really well this season in his debut season. And he actually set exactly the same lap time as Jake, but slightly afterwards. They both did it on the last lap of their sessions. And so he ends up just behind Jake, 3rd on the grid. And Callum Eilert, who was mighty impressive here last year with a different team, he was with the Van Amersfoort team in a very wet 3rd race last year. Terrific car control. It goes well around this circuit. And Callum, one of the key championship contenders this year, is 4th in the championship standings, 4th on the grid. Joey Morrison, the top rookie, the Australian, he's come up through Formula 4 racing. He's been with the Van Amersfoort team all the way through his car racing career. The Dutch team, the very likeable Australian, with a terrific lap yesterday to be 2nd quickest. He and Maxie Gunther were the class of the field in that wet condition that we had. But as I say, he carries this 3-place grid penalty, which puts him 3rd on the grid. And we have Pedro Piquet, also for Van Amersfoort Racing, who managed to qualify in 6th place, the son of Nelson Piquet, 3 times Formula 1 world champion, who won actually the first 2 Formula 1 races that were ever held at the Hungaroring back in 1986. And then the season he won his 3rd and final title that year with Williams. 1987 he was a winner here as well, so it's a strong family connection. Lando Norris, who came oh so close to winning the Pau Grand Prix, that very prestigious race that we have around the streets of France. He led the 3rd race, which is the Grand Prix race, until suspension failure on him and crushed him out of the race. And so it was Maxie Gunther that picked up the victory, almost very similar to what happened to Jake Dennis a couple of years ago when he dominated the weekend and had a problem with the suspension. And they're rounding out the top 8 on the grid. Guan Yu Zhu, who went well in the dry sessions yesterday. And he said to me yesterday, I was really looking forward to that qualifying session. I thought I was going to be right up there. And then it rained and it was all chaotic. And it was actually very, very close between 3rd down to about 10th place. There was only a tenth and a half between them. So there's nothing between them. But we've probably got to look towards dry times rather than wet times to have a proper comparison where we're going to be. Harrison Newey, you see there, the 3rd of the Van Amersfoort drivers, with the Mick Schumacher here in his first season of Formula 3 racing, having come up through Formula 4, the Italian and predominantly the German Formula 4 championship titles. He was the runner-up in that championship last year. Some good battles with Joey Morrison. And there is Mick Schumacher. Lots of people coming to get selfies with him in the paddock yesterday and autographs with Mick. But he's a little bit further back on the grid, rounding out the top 10 positions. So the grid is about to be cleared. And trackside here in at the Hungaroring, which is around about 15 or 16 kilometres away from the fantastic city of Budapest. It's a very good morning from me, Chris Hartley. And alongside me in the commentary box this weekend, it's Lee O'Gorman. Lee, welcome to the Hungaroring. It's a very different circuit, this, to what we have on the rest of the calendar, really, isn't it? It's got its own nuances, this track.
Absolutely. And the thing about this first few races of the season, Chris, is we've got some very, very, very different circuits. First round, we went to the wide open spaces and the very fast corners of Silverstone. Then it was Monza with those fast straights and tight chicanes. And then, of course, 4 weeks ago, we were in Pau, this street circuit where we actually lost race leaders in all 3 races. Yeah. And now here we are at Hungaroring. It's tight, it's twisty, and it's a very windy day today. This is a race that's going to need drivers having their total concentration all the way through. A little bit like Pau, a little bit more forgiveness because you do have runoff areas here, but it's still going to be an incredible race. And one last thing before we do get going. Talk about a driver on a run. As you said, Maxie Gunther, 2 race wins at Po a few weeks ago. His fastest 4 laps in qualifying yesterday all would have gotten full pole position. That is an incredible run for a driver who's absolutely on it at the moment.
Yeah, Ferdinand Habsburg, who's got Hungarian connections with the Hungarian royal family. He's Austrian by birth, but a strong connection here and lots of support for Ferdinand, who has been going well this season. Ferdinand Habsburg is 5th in the championship, the Carlin driver. He's had a podium finish at Monza, but lots of top 10, top 6 finishes as well. They can see the wind in the trees behind the grandstand. I'm on the 8th floor of my hotel in Budapest. I opened the window this morning, some fresh air, and almost got blown over. It's incredibly strong, about 19 or 20 kilometres an hour. It's going to be like it all day, actually perhaps through to tomorrow morning as well. So that could be interesting for the drivers. As we walked to the commentary box, Lee, it was a head-on wind into turn 1, but it's moving around all the time. Absolutely.
It's going to be very difficult for a lot of drivers to get maximum speed coming out of the final corner, going in to start, finish straight. But you do have a little bit of a switchback because it's a downward turn into the first corner. You have the headwind, but then as you actually get your switch back and you go towards turn 2, you actually get a bit of a tailwind, and you also get a wind coming onto the left rear. So it's actually going to cause a little bit of an imbalance as they go through the first few corners, especially when you're coming down from such high speed in turn 1.
That's right, yeah. And this is known as a circuit which is full of corners. There are 14 corners. It's only 4.3, nearly 4.4 kilometres around. But there are a couple of really quick turns. Turn 4 in 6th gear, that is taken, easy flat. The real challenge, Joey Morrison was saying to me yesterday, is turn 11 at the back as you go onto the shorter back straight. That's 5th gear, but flat, but you really have to hang on to it and avoid track limits, which lots of them were being penalised for yesterday.
Actually, you know what, I'll add to that. I think turn 4, the exit of turn 4 might be a bit tricky today because of this wind.
Yeah.
It generally is, as you're right, almost fairly flat out as you go through it, and that's kind of hanging on, of course, that you don't break track limits. But then with the kind of crosswind, because that's almost perpendicular to the wind that's coming in, drivers are going to find some instability as they actually go from 4 into turn 5.
That's right. So off the cars go onto their formation lap. In terms of the dry times yesterday, the 2 combined sessions, it was Joel Eriksson that was quickest overall in free practice with a 1 minute 34.9, 2/10 clear of Callum Ilott. And Guan Yu Zhu, as I say, was looking forward to a dry qualifying session, was 3rd quickest. Jan Daravala was 4th, Lando Norris 5th, and Joey Morrison 6th. Max Gunther, who's on pole position, was only 7th quickest after the free practice sessions in the dry. So in the dry, they were doing high 134s, low 135s. In that wet yesterday, and there was a lot of surface water to begin with. 149s was the best, 149.3 for Max Gunther, 149.7 for Joey Morrison. Those two were well clear of the rest. They were the only 2 to break the 150s. Jake Hughes was 3rd quickest with a 150.2, and then he went down to 11th place. Ralph Aron, 1 minute 50.3. He was only a 10th off, but he was all the way back in 11th place.
And as you see, Chris, the qualifying times now up on the screen. Look at that advantage that Maxie Gunther had over Jake Hughes. That's 9/10 of a second. Okay, yes, you have taken into account Joey Morrison was originally P2, but still 3/10 down on Gunther. But that's still almost an entire second that Gunther had over the rest of the field. And that's just not just Gunther's pace, but Prema Power Team judging the conditions in qualifying yesterday as it went from wet into dry. How they actually continue that pace into the race, we'll see in a few minutes.
Absolutely right, yeah. No, and you will have noticed from the grid graphic that came up there, as you see the circuit map, the last 4 drivers on the grid are all with the Motorpark team. I spoke with Timo Rumpfkarl, the team boss, yesterday, because Joel Eriksson, who is the championship leader, is one of their drivers, and he's last but one on the grid, the fantastic Swedish driver, and he was 4 seconds off the pace in the wet qualifying yesterday, and you think, well, that's not Joel, he's a quick driver, what's going on? They completely got the tyre pressures wrong. They thought they were too low, came in, upped the tyre pressures, and then found that was not working as the track became a little bit less wet, and they really struggled. So Joel Eriksson, the co-championship leader, is on 139 points. Lando Norris on 139 as well. Well, Joel's at the back of the grid, bar 1. Lando Norris is 7th on the grid. And you've also got Maxie Gunther, who is right up there in the championship fight now. Picked up some solid results in the first couple of events at Silverstone and at Monza, but at Po, those 2 wins and the podium mean he's 3rd in the championship now, and he's only 2 points behind the top 2. So it's Eriksson and Norris on 139. Gunter's on 137, Ilott 4th on 107 points.
I think a guy looking for a big result today will also be Jake Hughes, 2nd on the grid, as we see the man with the green flag at the back. The lights counting down, the race is about to start.
Here we go then, Max Gunther on pole position. Very good start for him, and it looks like a very good start as well for Daravala, the Indian driver who's going to come at here. The high-tech driver, Jake Hughes, in second on the grid. But as they go up through the gears, so he falls back, and actually, he might lose his place here. It's going to be 3 abreast into turn 1 as they squabble over second place. Out wide goes Daravala, but he still somehow hangs on to third place. But I say he got off the line really well. But as they went up through the gears, Jake Hughes was able to fend him off. You got Callum Ilott in the mix as well, Joey Morrison, and there's all that trio of Van Amersfoort cars there, the orange and black cars, as they go downhill through turn 2. And this is a steep drop as you come out of turn 1 all the way through turns 2 and 3, and then you begin to climb uphill. Here's this mighty quick left-hander at turn 4, taken in 6th gear flat out. Then it's down to 4th gear for turn 5, and Lando Norris having a look at the inside here. Ralph Aron is directly alongside him. Ralph's going to get through, I think, isn't he?
That's not a place. Oh, and there's an accident there.
That's Aron all over the back of one of the VAR cars.
And it's PK, I think he may have gone into the back of. That is a silly little incident on the first lap of the race. Maybe the driver in front of him checked up slightly, but Aaron went right over the rear wing, and the 2 cars are off the circuit.
Yeah, with, well, he's still going, isn't he, PK, but with a hugely damaged rear wing, I'm afraid. As you see, Mick Schumacher trying to make his way up through the field. But the front of the car was well up in the air there for Ralph Aron. And very, very high-speed incident that was. We're going to get a replay of it now. So Ralph Aron had just got past with Lando Norris, then just clipped the left rear, took out the rear wing of PK. PK's able to carry on, minus his rear wing, and with the steering wheel up in the air and the front tyres off the ground, he just had no steering, and off into the gravel he went. Yeah,
it looks like Aaron had a small run on PK, maybe nowhere near enough to actually finish a move, but PK also kind of moved back across to actually cover the position while Aaron was already there. And I do believe, is this a virtual safety car?
That's right, yeah, they're slowing the race down with Max Gunther just about to make his way into turn 1, and there is what's left of the rear wing of PK after a really good qualifying session for him as well. That's hugely damaging for the Van Amersfoort racing driver. And because Ralph Aron is completely out of the race. Now, he was confident. He was a race winner here last year. He got a win a second, and then unfortunately went off on the formation lap in the 3rd race, the wet race. But he was looking for a good result here. He was right on the pace.
I think the key thing about that incident is PK was very much on the inside, and Aaron was he wasn't actually alongside PK at all, but he was just there enough on the actual racing line. So when PK actually moved back across, he kind of moved into the path of Aaron. I mean, yeah, look how disappointed he is. He's not impressed whatsoever, and I'm sure PK was probably not going to be too impressed with Aaron as well. But you know what? It's a silly little incident to have in a first lap of a race for 2 drivers.
It's a replay. So Daravala gets a good start. Lando Norris got off the line well also, didn't he, initially? It's quite a long run to turn 1, slightly downhill into turn 1 as well. Then it was this 3 abreast here. Daravala had no choice but to stick to the outside. He went out wide, but still was able to fend off Callum Ilott.
And a wonderful piece of driving there from those the 2nd, 3rd and 4th place drivers as they went into turn 1 and actually managed to stay absolutely clear. And
I think PK moved across slightly, and right-hander coming up, he moved across to the left before they went into the chicane, and Ralph wasn't expecting that, and therefore the contact happened. And you can see from the body language of the tall Estonian, very, very disappointed. I spoke to Marco Asma, ex-F3 star, of course, ex-British F3 champion, who has been coaching him since he was in Formula 4. And I said, yeah, how's the pace in the dry? And they said, it's good. You know, it's so tight here that, you know, a 1/10 of a second means you're 11th on the grid. But actually, he was right in the mix, and was saying that he'd had traffic on his last couple of laps in that wet qualifying session as well. Otherwise, he might well have been a lot higher up the grid. So driver that goes well here, but that, I'm afraid, is race 1 ruined. So Gunter, the race leader, Hughes in 2nd, Daravala in 3rd. Callum Ilott was the one trying to get through but couldn't at turn 1, so he's going to be there in 4th place. Joey Morrison 5th. Harrison Newey's made a good start up to 6th place. Guan Yu in 7th. Schumacher 8th. And then we have Norris, despite the good start, only in 9th place. David Beckmann, worth talking about as well, because he switched teams now. He started with Van Amersfoort, but he's moved across to the Motorpark team now. He's only just had a shakedown, essentially, at the Oschersleben circuit, which is right next to where Motorpark are based. But the team boss was very, very impressed with what he's seen from him. And despite the fact that the 4 cars were at the back of the field, he was the best of the Motorpark qualifiers yesterday. So young David Beckmann, the youngest driver in the field at just 16, we'll see how he gets on. He didn't do a full season last year because he wasn't old enough to start the year. But I don't think Ralph's moved from that position, has he, since I think it's a thoughtful pose there as he looks on at what might have been. Very frustrating.
I think he probably can't find a way back.
Possibly, yeah. Wait for a lift. So it's a long way out, isn't he? So we're going to get the race back up to speed now. And over the line comes Max Gunther. And he's absolutely dropped them, hasn't he? I mean, Jake Hughes is nowhere near him as they go over the start-finish line. He's going to be a second and a half clear as they go into the turn. Watch for Joey Morrison there as well, the first of the orange and black Van Amersfoort drivers, trying to get past Callum Ilott, but also trying to fend off Harrison Newey, who's made a good start to this race from the 5th row of the grid.
Yeah, very good start for Huey. As I said earlier on, Norris lost a couple of places. It was going into turn 4 where he was in a tight battle where he actually dropped a couple of positions. Now he's 9th place. He's really going to have to fight hard to make his way back up the order. Joel Eriksson, by the way, we said started 17th. He's 11th already. Yes. Only 1 place outside the points.
Yeah, of course, everybody was bunched up as well, just in front of him. So we'll start to pick them up here. As I say, he was quickest across the free practice sessions on the aggregate time. 2 times combined. Mighty gap back then. Lando Norris trying to fight his way through. He's got Schumacher in front of him though. He's also got to keep an eye on the mirrors as you say. And cut the corner there to avoid any contact. One of the cars but rejoins. But a long train here, bunched up behind Schumacher. There is the number 1 car of last year's rookie champion, Joel Eriksson. The champion, of course, was Lance Stroll, who's gone to race with Williams Martini Racing in Formula 1.
And Schumacher's driving in his mirrors, Chris. He's really not. He's letting the rest of the field kind of get away, but he's driving in such a way to make sure those behind him don't get an opportunity to actually get away past. You know, if he holds this up for the rest of the race, it'll be a testament to his level of concentration. But he's going to be under a lot of pressure for the next few laps.
That's right. So Gunter crosses the line now, 1.5 seconds clear of Hughes. I reckon he was 1.5 seconds clear at the start of the lap as well. He's just sort of kept that gap back to Jake Hughes, who's a very experienced single-seater racer now, 22-year-old. I think I'm right in saying he's the oldest driver in the field at 22, the Birmingham-based driver, the BRDC, British Racing Drivers Club superstar, who's come up through Formula Renault for a couple of years and has 3 or 4 seasons under his belt now of racing single-seater cars, but new to this championship, except for the fact he did the last round at Hockenheim last year and got himself a podium finish in one of the races there.
Just don't tell him that he's the oldest in the field. He gets a bit touchy about these kind of things.
Well, if he thinks he's old, he should try being me. Right, so they come up over the brow.
You said it.
Exactly. Fastest first sector has just gone to Daravala, the Indian driver, in 3rd place. He actually won a talent cup to get into motorsport in the first place. He's only been car racing for a few seasons, came up through karting, and won the 1 in a million talent in India to come up into the car racing championship. And I think it's been a really impressive addition to the grid. Absolutely,
and he showed very well at the start of this year. He raced in the Toyota Racing Series in New Zealand at the start of the year and put in some very, very competent performances there, and was kind of on the edge of the championship challenge later on. That's a championship that Lando Norris actually won last year as well. Yeah. And he showed some decent performances so far this year. He's learning, he's getting quicker, he's just needs to shore up his consistency, and he can actually be a real challenge for race wins and podiums later on in the season.
Yeah, Daravala was his second year he's done that championship. It was 5th this year, but the year Lando Norris won it, he was second to him. He took 3 wins in the Toyota Racing Series, which lots of these drivers go and competing because it's run over the European winter, so it's a good way to keep race sharp during the winter break. Still, the gap is 1.5 seconds. So Gunter being pegged, not pegged back, but held on to here by Jake Hughes at this stage of the race in 2nd place, with both of them in the 136.6s. A tenth clear, nearly a 1.5 tenths quicker was Daravala with that very good first sector with a 136.5. So 3rd is catching 2nd, and even quicker was Callum Ilott in 4th place with a 136.3.
It's a little bit of a kind of several little trains going on at the moment, whereas Gunther 1.5 seconds ahead. We've got Hughes, Deruvela, Ilott all battling for P2, and then you have Newey and Guanyu Zhou battling for P6 and P7, and then with Schumacher you got Norris, Beckmann, Eriksson, Habsburg, Mazepin, Makino, all behind him. It is a bit of a train, but it only takes one little mistake and can find a way through, break that train, as it were.
Schumacher's actually pulling away from Lando Norris and everybody else, isn't he, at this stage of the race. He was a little bit defensive, or had to be a little bit defensive on that first lap after the restart, but he's pulled well clear now. So Schumacher in 8th place, Norris in 9th. And in the final points-paying position at the moment is David Beckmann, who, of course, has come from near the back of the field. And the other one that's come from near the back of the field, Joel Eriksson, still just outside the points in 11th place. Any point gained here, I think, would be a real bonus to the Swede, who has a BMW junior driver as well, and has been doing some DTM tests over the winter. Jerez did some, I think 4 times he was a DTM taxi driver, so he's got an eye on that championship. And we got one, I'm afraid, heading into the pits. And now, what is this for?
It's one of the Carlins, is it?
Yeah, is this for a problem?
It's Habsburg, yeah, it is Habsburg.
There's no message on the screen. Oh, drive-through penalty, that's why. Yeah, it's on the screen. Drive-through penalty for a jump start, that's why he's coming in.
And also, it's going to be a jump start for Sato as well.
Yeah.
Carlin are in a slightly interesting position this weekend. They were 4 cars for the first 3 rounds with Jake Dennis in the 4th car. Now Jake is his full-time job, as it were, is driving in Blancpain in Blancpain GT series. So effectively, Carlin have 3 rookies. For most of the season, and it'll be interesting to see how that affects the team going forward, because Jake Dennis was a guy who had experience, who had knowledge, who could actually really deliver for the team. But with 3 rookies, it'll be interesting to really see how Norris, Habsburg and de Ruvela really tackle that kind of that problem.
That's right, yeah, back in 2015, 3rd in the championship, Jake Dennis. And drove for Carlin, then went on, actually his best season was when he moved on to Prema, but as an association with Carlin, and I think that's certainly part of the reason for bringing him in for those first few meetings. So Gunter, 1.4 seconds clear. The gap's come down a little bit here. Jake Hughes catching him ever so slightly. Jay Morrison set the fastest first sector, albeit fractionally. And here is a replay of out wide.
That's Norris. That's Norris going off in the quite way in the chicane at the back end of the circuit. It looks like he hasn't lost position, but that's not going to do the floor of his Carlin car any good. Or that's Ericsson. Sorry, it's Ericsson.
Yeah.
It's not going to do the floor of his motor park car any good whatsoever. Ericsson, yeah, he held on to 11th place. He's just 0.6 of a second behind Beckmann as Sato goes into the pits to take his drive-through penalty. But that's not the kind of damage you want to inflict upon your Formula 3 car, because it really can do a lot of bad for the handling.
So you mentioned Joey Morrison with the fastest first set to the lap was 0.3 quicker than Callum Ilott. So Morrison in 5th place. In 4th place, Callum Ilott. The gap down to 0.7 of a second. Sato in to serve his drive-through penalty. The incident between PK and Aaron is going to be investigated after the race, by the way.
And if you notice there, PK is actually rejoining the race. Yes. After his rear wing's been fixed. I think they were looking at the rear suspension as well, making sure that was shored up before he headed back on track. And you think, well, PK's 5 laps down. Why on earth is he going onto the circuit? Well, you know what? Track time is everything in junior Formula racing. Even though there's so much track time in Formula 3, you still go out, even if you are 5 laps down and there's no points on offer, you still go out, you do more laps, you gain more knowledge, you gain more information, you gain more track time. It's how you're supposed to actually learn in these junior categories. So fair play to the Van Amersfoort guys for sending PK back out despite his position.
Plus, you never know, big incident, and you might just sneak a point. Also, they've got a very important qualifying session this afternoon. It's, in a way, the most important qualifying session, because qualifying 1, which was yesterday, sets the grid for this race. Qualifying 2 sets the grid for both of the races tomorrow. Your fastest lap time gives you the grid for race 2. The second fastest lap time for everybody gives you the grid for race 3. Gunter is stretching the lead back out to 1.9 seconds from Hughes. Daravala's only 0.4 of a second behind him, though. And was 0.3 quicker on the previous lap, so the gap going down from 2nd to 3rd. It's gone down again from Ilott to Morrison from 0.7 to just half a second now.
And I wonder now, if I said earlier on about Schumacher, is Jake Hughes beginning to drive in his mirrors as well? Because he's the first of the front runners to drop into the 1:37s, while those behind him, they're all still in 1:36. In fact, Andres is the only other driver in the field in the 1:37. So maybe Hughes is beginning to pay a little bit more attention to his mirrors than he is actually out front. And we see Hughes and de Ruvela there, and de Ruvela is really getting closer. He's beginning to inch in on the high-tech driver. So this is going to be a close one for the next few laps.
He's going well. He's 3rd in the rookie standings. He's in the top 10 in the overall championship points as well. He's had a podium finish at Monza. So had lots of point scoring finishes. In fact, there's only one race, and that was the Po GP, where he hasn't been in the top 10. He hasn't been in the points, and that was an 11th place finish. He's a Force India Formula 1 protege. It was Force India who set up that 1 in a billion talent hunt that got him into motorsport in the first place, and then spent his early stages, as we mentioned, Toyota Racing Championship. He's also done some Formula Renault racing in Europe, was 4th in the Northern European Championship last year. So gaining good experience, and a very talented young driver, the 18-year-old from Mumbai.
And Joey Morrison, less than half a second now behind Callum Islet and taking a very different line coming through the final corner. Actually, you know, Callum Islet is sliding quite a bit. And Callum's a very exciting driver. He really does like to wing the car out in quite an exuberant manner from time to time. But he was really wide coming through that final corner. I think that's actually lost him 0.3 of a second in the last corner alone, as Islet now drops into the 37s.
And Maxie Gunther looking more and more comfortable at the head of the field. We've got some action a little bit further back here, side by side is Joe Morrison on the attack here with Callum Islet. He's got the inside line through turn 2, and through goes the Australian. And it's been coming that for a couple of laps, catching. And the first chance he gets, he goes through. And Callum might do well to try and follow him now, as you see this battle for second place between Hughes and Daravala, and the gap down to a better car length between the two of them. So Jake Hughes is going to have a long 17 minutes plus 1 lap, 33 minutes plus 1 lap, the race distance.
And so Callum is still sliding, so I wonder maybe if he's has slightly used tyres, maybe on the rear, but he's still sliding and actually losing quite a bit of time to Morrison now that he's dropped down to 5th place. But that was a very, very intelligent move by Morrison, really just sleeking down the inside and forcing Islet to the outside line and absolutely ensuring that he had the position. We'll see it here, dive down the inside, and they just hold it as they go into the inside in turn 2.
It's good driving from both, wasn't it? It gave each other room. Morrison was never really trying to get around the outside into turn 1. He knew if he could stay there, he'd have the better line going into turn 2 and set it up beautifully. And now, as they come out of the final turn at turn 14 to start a new lap, he begins to pull away from Callum Islet. So that Van Amersfoort car going well. But they struggled here last year in the dry conditions, Van Amersfoort, which was why Callum Islet was, I think, relieved when it rained for race 3, because the car had been a bit of a handful. And Fritz Van Amersfoort, the team boss, I remember him saying to me last year, it's just one of those tracks that we never seem to be able to find the sweet spot, the setup. But I tell you what, they have looked much more competitive, Van Amersfoort, here this weekend.
Interesting. I mean, Islet dropped nearly a second on that lap in the Prema car. I think he's pushing the car too hard, maybe sliding too much and giving too much away in the rear. Morrison, meanwhile, he lost a little bit of time actually over in the midst of overtaking Islet, but I think we might see him just close up slightly to the back of Daravala and Hughes now in the next couple of laps. Gunther, meanwhile, not a bother. 2.6 seconds ahead. He's enjoying a nice drive in the Hungarian village just outside Budapest. I think he's having a great time out there.
And mixed memories of this circuit. Last year, he was a championship runner-up, of course, last year. He gave Lance Stroll a real run for his money. And he won a race here, won race 2. Then he had a coming together with George Russell last year, which was quite a big moment in the championship. And so definitely quick around here, but as I say, mixed memories. But he's got stronger and stronger as the weekend has gone on. And there was this question mark over what he'd be like in the drive, because, as I say, free practice, although you can never always read too much into free practice, he wasn't that fast compared to the others. But I'll tell you what, they've got it sorted now, haven't they?
He's still in the mid-36s. Yeah. And this is a consequence as well of not actually being under any pressure. He's actually taking everything in his stride, whereas Hughes, Daravala, and Morrison, Islet, for example, they're all pressing each other. They're all forcing the issue with each other and their cars and losing time as a result. Gunther out in clean air, not having to worry whatsoever. He's just at a 1:36.5. Everyone behind him, 1:36.9s or 1:37.1s. He's not worrying whatsoever, as you see a lock-up going into turn 1. And this is Norris on Schumacher, and he has nailed. Oh, and they did. Yeah. They clattered as they went through the first sector. But that is Norris has finally broken past Schumacher. Now there's just Beckmann behind the Prema driver.
The lap record around here is a 1:34.0, by the way, which was set by, guess who, Max Gunther last year. So that's the benchmark time. Upgrades to the aero on the cars this year, and they've generally been, when the conditions have been right, a little bit quicker than they were last season. A bit more powerful than them as well. So Lando Norris, having got by, albeit without contact, has rocketed away now from Schumacher. Will there be any sustained damage to the car, which is now in 9th place? And will that then therefore mean that he's in danger of dropping out of the points, with Beckmann coming up fast behind and Joel Eriksson as well, two very quick drivers?
And it says a lot. Instantly, Norris personal best straight away into the 35.8s in the first sector, and another personal best in the middle sector. He's 4 and a bit seconds behind Guan Yu Zhu. It might be a tall order to actually pull that back and make an overtake in the last 13-14 minutes of the race. But you know what? He's going to be gunning for that, because at the championship, Joel Eriksson, okay, Joel's still outside the points at 11th place, but it only takes one little incident, suddenly Joel's scoring as well.
Well, the biggest danger in terms of the championship is the guy in the lead, isn't it? 'Cause he's
absolutely
only 2 points behind them. He's going to move into the championship lead, Max Gunther, with this, if he turns it into a race victory. And it's looking more and more likely, isn't it, with his 3.1 second lead that he now has. That's what Timo Rumpfkarl said to me yesterday. He said, more annoying, or as annoying at the fact we're back of the field, of course, is that Gunter is right at the other end of the grid. So, this is damage limitation here. Lando Norris actually only got 7th on the grid right at the end of the session. He came in to change tyres and put his best lap in right at the end of the session. Otherwise, he'd have been struggling a bit further back down the grid as well. So there is Lando in the black and luminous yellow colour scheme there, the Carlin driver. And he's, second and a half clear now, I would say, of Schumacher already, isn't he?
And he took 7/10 out of Guan Yu Zhu in that last lap alone, so very, very, very good effort from Lando Norris. He's 3.4 behind the Prema driver. It's going to be, as I said, it's going to be a tall order, but I think he might actually close up on the Prema driver quite quickly now.
Deruvula set the fastest first sector of the race as well on this lap to come back at Jake Hughes. So second and third still very, very close indeed.
I think that's battle resumed there, Chris, so. after a few laps of a kind of nullified action, as it were.
As Nikita Mazepin, the Russian driver, it's as close to a home race as he's going to get on the calendar this year for Formula 3. Second season for the Russian driver, who's with Oliver Oakes' high-tech GP team. Stays with the same team where he began last year, and just outside the points, so he's just behind Ericsson in 12th place. The pair of them trying to catch up now to Beckmann, who in turn is trying to catch Schumacher. So 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th at tail end of the championship points. Mighty close, 11 minutes 40 seconds to go, so we're at 2/3 race distance now. And Deruvula is just half a second back on Hughes, and 6/10 behind him is Morrison. So I think it's because he's been pushed along. You can see what's coming in the mirrors. There's the 55 car of Beckmann, backed by Red Bull. Only 16 years of age, comes from Iserlohn in Germany, which is near Dortmund, and was his first season of car racing in 2015, where he finished 4th in the Italian Formula 4 Championship with 3 race wins. Youngest rookie in the field as well in the German Formula 4 Championship, in which he was a top 5 finisher before most of last season in Formula 3. He was with the Muka Motorsport team, who was sadly not part of the championship this year, the Berlin-based squad, but has switched across, firstly to Van Amersfoort, and now for the rest of the season with Motorpark. And
it's just one of those things, Chris, that you can't always, relationships don't always come together as we want them to, and a situation with Beckmann where it just didn't gel for whatever reason. It just didn't gel with Van Amersfoort. Both sides were very positive before the start of the season, but as we got into the first few rounds, it just wasn't working. It just, whether Beckmann wasn't gelling with his engineers or the team just weren't kind of working well with him. So they've come to an amicable split a couple of weeks ago, and Beckmann did a test with Motorpark, and now he's joined the team for this round onwards.
That's right. So he picks up some good results towards the end of it. He got a couple of podiums. He got a podium in the final round at Hockenheim. He actually got a pole position, but was later given a technical penalty which dropped him back. So the results were starting to come last year for David, and you expected him therefore to be one of the drivers rising up in his second season in the championship, but as you say, it just didn't work out. And with Motorpark, he seems to be gelling straight away, that's for sure. And he's keeping their main man, he's keeping the championship leader behind him, isn't he? Because there they are, 55 Beckmann and 1 Ericsson, still nose to tail, still one of them in the points and the other not. And this is, I'm sure a bit frustrating for Joel Eriksson, because the driver that stands between him and a championship point is his new teammate.
And I just wonder if Ericsson has possibly done any kind of damage to his floor when he had that off, when he had that off exiting the chicane quite a few laps ago. But in Hungaroring is a traditionally very, very, very difficult circuit to overtake on, as we've seen with Norris, and they went wheel to wheel with Schumacher into turn 1, as we saw with Morrison and Eilert as they went side by side through turn 1 and turn 2. You really got to force the issue if you want to make a move work at this circuit. As we see, Ferdinand Habsburg set the fastest first sector way down in the field in 15th place.
But with clear track in front of him.
Absolute clear track in front of him. As we said about Piquet earlier on, just getting some kind of mileage. And Piquet, by the way, he is at the very back of the field, but he's in completely clean air, so he is doing just that. He's just pumping in the laps here and there. He won't be classified because he won't have completed enough laps in this race, but at least he'll have extra mileage.
That's right, yeah. So absolutely critical for them to make sure the car is okay for this really, really important qualifying session. As I say, it sets the grid for 2 races this afternoon, but as Lee says, it's also not easy to pass here, so you want to be at the front of the field. And here we go with a move here.
And he's done it.
Through goes Ericsson, back roads wide on the exit to turn 1. He should be okay, though. Scrambles it back onto the line, and he'll be there for turn 2. Joel Ericsson there with a tidy move on the way into turn 1 to get the final points paying position. Now, will he rocket away? Was he being held up? And Beckmann's also got to watch out for Mazepan just behind. Here is the move then from Joel Ericsson. He's a man, if you give him half a chance, he will grab it with both hands. That was a very, very clean move. And he did well not to outbrake himself there and run wide, really wide on the exit.
Ericsson got a very good run out of the final corner on that lap, and was able just to lock right in behind Beckmann coming down the start-finish straight. And I was just, as they were coming over the brows, I could think to myself, well, this is on. And the...
Beckmann doing a wheelie there, coming over the curbs. Took a bit too much curb, got the front completely airborne there, and has been dropped already by Ericsson. So Ericsson, not satisfied with 1 point, he's going to go after more now. He's trying to close the gap to Schumacher's going to be his next target, who is 1.8 seconds up the road. And here's a replay. Look at this. Bang, over the curbs. Actually, got 3 wheels off the ground there. That is not going to be good for the underneath of the car.
It's not going to be good for his backside.
No. Oh, it's good morning. It's woken him up, hasn't it? That's for sure. Oh, right, we're here. We're racing. 7 minutes to go. Very bumpy ride, that. And Beckmann, though, good start to the race. Team boss was very impressed with him yesterday. Actually lost the radio in qualifying for whatever reason. And he was very impressed with the maturity he showed in coming in to look at the tyres and change tyres without having to be told to do so.
And as you see, you mentioned a moment ago about Ericsson catching up to Schumacher. Schumacher's just put in a lap in the 1:38.3s.
Yes, very
And Ericsson in 1 lap has taken 1.6 seconds off the Prem driver. I know I'm thinking to see if he had an off or maybe there's an issue, but I think Ericsson is now already in the points. He's going to be looking at ninth place and maybe going for an extra point here.
Well, you know with Joel that if the chance comes, he's going to go for it. He's really not interested in 10th, 9th, 8th. He's only interested in first place. It's the way he drives. It's why it's so fantastic to watch.
I remember in 2015 when Pascal Wehrlein, former European Formula 3 driver, when he won the DTM title, he told me it's sometimes winning championships is not about the great weekends where you just roll off a victory with absolute ease. It's about the bad weekends where you actually do the best of a bad job. And sometimes race victories or championship victories can be nailed when you score those 8th places or the 9th places while your opponents are down in 11th or 12th.
Especially with such a long championship, 30 races in the championship. And you've seen from Ferdinand Habsburg, who's towards the tail end of the field, he's setting lap times not that far off what the front runners are doing at times when he gets a good run in. So they're all so evenly matched, which means you are not going to dominate the championship. Nobody's going to go and win 15, 16 races in this championship. You are going to have to fight for the points sometimes.
And it's also about the having good qualifying as well, because later on, as we mentioned already, the qualifying session will be for races 2 and 3. We saw at Pole there was incidences where qualifying was ruined for 1 or 2 drivers in Quali 2, and it actually destroyed races 2 and 3 as well, as we see more action coming into the...
Beckmann defending from Mazepan, who he's on the back foot, isn't he here, David Beckmann? Over the curbs wouldn't have helped, but he's started to go backwards very, very quickly indeed.
And I wonder if his concentration is broke now that Ericsson has passed him. I wonder if that wall he had up while he was defending against his teammate has actually broken him, and now Mazepan has just drawn right in.
Or he's maybe just struggling with the tyres a bit. Tadasuke Makino, the Japanese driver, is closing in as well, just behind. And in the foreground, running through shot, mighty close all of a sudden, were Ericsson and Schumacher. Now, Schumacher was nearly 2 seconds up the road. The gap is down about half a second. And here they are, Schumacher in 9th place, Ericsson in 10th position. Then there's now a train of 4 cars, because you've got the German driver Kevin Andres has caught up as well in that train that's behind that man, number 55, David Beckmann. So he's going to have to really dig in here and fight for the next, 5 minutes it's going to be, 4 minutes plus a lap at the end of it. Here then, Schumacher versus Ericsson, these two pushing on. Ericsson is by far the quicker of the two, the way he's very rapidly closed that gap. But we've seen already, Lee, that Schumacher is strong at defending his position.
Absolutely. I think it was mostly Schumacher. Oh, and way off goes Joel Ericsson. He almost completely lost the back end as he got his wheels on the paint in the pit lane entry. And It'd be interesting actually what the stewards will think of that, because that's generally a no-no to go that far into the pit lane and pull back onto the track. Yeah, I mean, but as we see,
wasn't it? But
as we see Schumacher defend against Ericsson going one way and the other, as Ericsson pulls into the inside as it folds out of turn 1 and into turn 2. Does the Swede have the opportunity to make a move as he goes to the outside? Schumacher defends as they roll through the second corner, not going to make it there. Ericsson's now going to pull back into turn 3, see can he make the gap, but I think Schumacher has it covered for this lap. But Schumacher really going way out there to defend against Joel Eriksson those first few corners. Really aggressive stuff. But hey, you know, that's what we like to see. It's racing, it's hard racing.
Pete, I think, has come back into the pits. I was laughing because only Joel Eriksson could slide wide at the end of a lap coming into turn 14. Anybody else would have lost traction and been nowhere going into turn 1, but he still goes on the attack. There is Max Gunther, who's in his own race here, 4.4 seconds clear of Jake Hughes, who's doing a really good job in second place. He's pulled back away from Deruvala, who's not that far clear of Morrison still, but the gap has stayed pretty stable between them. Eilert in 5th place, Newey in 6th position, Zhu in 7th, Norris and then Schumacher and Ericsson battling here for 9th and 10th positions, and Ericsson is all over him like an angry wasp here, trying to get through. It doesn't matter if it's for 9th place or 1st place, he gives it 100%.
Schumacher's defensive driving is borderline, though. He needs to be careful he doesn't make too many moves on the straight defending us, as Ericsson actually gets the second last corner right this time. So now that he has actually got the momentum, will he hook up onto the rear of Schumacher and try move going into the first corners behind him? We see Beckmann and Mazepin close as well. Norris close to Zhu, but not really able to make a move. Ericsson's there, but I'm not sure he's actually quite close enough. As Schumacher moves to the inside of the road, Ericsson takes the outside. He's trying to position to maybe get the switch back as it comes through the first couple of corners. Again, the gap is not quite there. Now Ericsson will move to the inside of turn 2 and try and dive down the gap. No, Schumacher holds that off as well.
By far the best chance is going to be into turn 1, but you can see Schumacher, he's not looking forwards going into turn 1. He's looking in the mirrors and he's watching where the Swede is positioning his car and doing a good job at the moment of covering off the line and fending him off for 9th place.
And Schumacher is driving in the middle of the road going through turn 1, and while that's in a sense is optimal for him to defend in that kind of manner, it actually also puts him slightly offline as you go through turn 1, turn 2, and the first couple of corners here are actually they're very good in that it's not just a one chance to overtake, is that you can take use an opportunity to turn 1 to actually get a switch back or maybe even complete a move going into turn 2 and into turn 3.
Well, we saw that from Morrison earlier on, didn't we? I will say Schumacher is getting a good run coming out of turn 14 as well. He pulled a length or so clear, and so Ericsson came back at him with the slipstream and under braking, but he was a bit too far back to begin with going onto the straight. You mentioned Lando Norris. He is very much closing up to Guan Yu Zhu for 7th place. So we've got 3 rookies in the top 8 at the moment, 4 rookies in the top 10. The top rookie is Deruvala in 3rd place. Morrison in 4th place is the second best rookie, and Norris is on for another rookie podium here. Now Ericsson not quite as close this time as they come out through turn 14. He's only going to get one more chance at this because the 2 more chances, 33 minutes he's going to be up shortly. Then it's onto the additional lap, so 2 to go. And now he starts to come back at Schumacher, but it's only halfway in down the straight by the time he's close enough. Schumacher covers off the inside line. Ericsson is going to try and hang on around the outside. Schumacher just makes his car as wide as possible, so he has to go wide off the road, and Ericsson then will not be close enough to attack on the way to the left-hander at turn 2. Has a little lock-up as well to add good measure, and so Schumacher once again fends him off. Good driving from the German.
A little bit half-hearted there in a sense by Joel Ericsson as well. I think he actually cost himself more time than anything else by kind of just hanging on when the opportunity to overtake was lost, and rather maybe he should have actually just stuck under the rear wing of Schumacher rather than just go out wide and lose grip and lose time over the runoff area. And I think it's just given Schumacher maybe a slight bit of breathing space. One thing to note, Schumacher and Ericsson for the most part in the last few laps have been in like the late 37s or the early 38s, while the field around them are still doing the 36 and 37s. They're really dropping behind the field in front. Yeah,
I mean, I can't see a pair of rails on the track, but I'm pretty sure Max Gunther is on a pair because he's so smooth, so switched on. This is a great drive by Maxie. Doing top job. He's a DTM junior driver as well from Mercedes. I'm getting slightly worried about Jake Hughes. He had a bad lap last time around. He lost half a second to Deruvala, and you got Morrison right with them as well. So he's going to have to fight hard for this final lap of the race to hang on to his second place here, Jake Hughes, with Deruvala and then Morrison coming at them pretty quick here. So here they're going to turn one. He's okay at the moment. That lap was not great either, but nobody really made too much ground up on him. Lando Norris getting very close to Guan Yu Zhou in the background through at turn one. As he gets through in the background, I don't think he did. I think the Chinese driver fended him off. There is Max Gunther. Where's everybody else? So there they are. Eventually they come through. Max through the top of the hill, through the left-hander at turn four, flat in sixth gear, is now 5 seconds clear.
And I think Schumacher has solidified ninth place ahead of Ericsson. He was able to pull another 3/10 away from the Swede. And I think that is possibly maybe a slight consequence of the fact that Ericsson ran off track on the previous lap, got dirt on his tyres, got grit on his tyres, and you lose grip, you lose time, you can't get the traction down, you're not quite as good, as confident in the braking, and that's probably cost him his last opportunity to try and go for ninth place. But from 17th on the grid, it's a point. It's not much, but it's a point. And as we said earlier on, small numbers can count.
I mentioned that you can't dominate Formula 3 because it's so evenly matched. What you don't often see are 3 race wins on the trot. That's exactly what Max Gunther is about to achieve here. It's going to be his 8th career victory. It's going to be his 3rd on the bounce. And it has looked very, very comfortable for the German driver, for Prema Power Team. The checkered flag awaits then out of turn 14 for the final time. The first race of the weekend. The checkered flag goes to Max Gunther with his 8th Formula 3 European career victory, 3rd on the spin, and he moves into the championship lead. 5.8 seconds back, Jake Hughes takes 2nd place. And Jake Hughes, I say one of the more experienced drivers, didn't get off to the sort of start to the season he would have liked, but that team, High Tech and he, starting to really get their act together now, work well as a team, and that's a really good result in 2nd place, with 3rd place going to Carlin and to Jehan Daravla, who's the best rookie. Joey Morrison was only 0.6 of a second behind him in 4th place. Callum Ilott in 5th position. Harrison Newey made up all his time on the start and stayed in 6th place throughout. Guan Yu Zhou fended off Lando Norris for 7th place. 9th place going to Schumacher with 0.4 of a second gap back then to Ericsson, who came from last but one on the grid to grab the final championship point. 11th place went to Beckmann, who did fend off Maxie Gunther, and he also managed to fend off Makina, and then it was Andres Sori in 14th place, Habsburg in 15th, a lap down Sato, and 9 laps down after the rear wing damage, after the coming together with Ralph Aron, was Pedro Piquet, and fastest lap of the race going to Max Gunther.
I said at the start of the race, he's a guy on a roll, and he's just turned a pole position, a very confident pole position, into a very, very polished win. And the championship lead, which off the top of my head, is now 19 points from Norris. I believe it's 19 points from Norris. That's a huge turnaround in 3 races. You remember, after race 1 in Po, Gunther got a podium, got some good points in that, but was still absolutely nowhere in the championship. But now look at him.
So wins massively count. If you get a few of them together, you get right back up in the fight. And Maxie's been around long enough to know that, you know, even if you're a bit of a gap to try and make up in this championship, there are so many races, you get to run together and you can still be in the fight. So the German, the runner-up in last year's championship, now in his 3rd season in the championship, and he's, you know, from his point of view, there's only one thing left to do now, and that's to win the championship title, and that is what he'll be going guns out to do with Prema Power Team, who have won since this version of the championship was formed 5 years ago. They've won, or 6 years ago, they've won every single drivers' championship.
I think there's one guy who's going to be very, very disappointed with this race result. It's probably going to be Lando Norris. Started 7th, was looking to maybe take up positions, probably hoping for maybe a podium or maybe a bit top 4 with a good start. But he's actually lost positions on a first lap when he went wheel to wheel with, to be honest, I can't remember who it was at this stage.
There you go then, and Max Gunther, 162 points, 9 clear of Lando Norris on 143. Joel Eriksson slips to 3rd on 140. Callum Ilott is there just ahead of Jehan Daravla, 4th and 5th in the standings. So it was tight coming into this. It's widened out a bit now, but it sees for the first time this season Max Gunther going to the top of the championship standings there. The drivers getting out of their cars. We still wait for the winner, who's soaking up the atmosphere here with a big crowd gathering here. Part of the DTM German Touring Car Championship weekend. 34, Jake Hughes already out of his car. There is Max Gunther. Almost laid back, isn't he, as he gets out of the car. Sunday morning drive almost, this, on Saturday morning.
I wonder if he's even had a sweat.
Doesn't feel like it, does it? I mean, that's deceptive, though, isn't it? You look at it, you think, oh, there's no effort going into this, but it's incredible accuracy that the German driver shows. And a really accomplished drive that. I mean, didn't put a wheel wrong, did he? Fantastic. And you know, we know he's good in the wet and the dry now this weekend, which is ominous for everybody else.
I mean, he was imperious in qualifying. He had a wonderful start. He had a very good restart from the virtual safety car. He instantly pulled 1.6. He pulled a 7/10 gap on that first lap after the safety car period. And for the rest of the race, he's just eased away bit by bit. Didn't need to throw in any qualifying laps. Didn't need to really push massively hard. He just kept it nice, consistent, steady for the rest of the race. Pulled out a 5-point-second gap to win the race with almost ease.
Yeah, impressive. So everybody down at Prema, absolutely chuffed with that. You see, still windy down there, even in the shelter of the pit lane building. Deruvla with his second podium of the season, by the way, the rookie winner. Morrison in fourth place, the second of the rookies, and Lando Norris will still get some silverware for being the third best rookie in eighth place, to add to his already enormous collection of trophies that he's mounted in the various championships. So third place, to add to the second place finish he got at Monza. And again, just to make the points, Deruvla only once this season out of the points. Fantastic start to his Formula 3 campaign. The Carlin driver takes third place, but it's Jake Hughes for High Tech Grand Prix who comes home in second position in the race. That's his second podium of the year. Got a third place in one of the races at Silverstone. That's the first time on the podium since then. It's his best result of the season as he seeks his first championship win. But Maxie Gunther there with 3 on the bounce now. And in fact, that is 5 races on the trot that he's been on the podium, because he got, before the 2 wins at Po, third places in race 1 at Po, third place in the final race at Monza as well. So, as Lee says, he is the man on form, very much so, to take the victory here. I think, as it's fair to say, at a canter.
And we must not forget as well, this time last year was around the time when Prema Power Team really locked into gear, and we saw Lance pull massively ahead in the championship with a lot of very, very, very good results in this middle part of the year. We've had the first 3 rounds done and dusted. We're now here for the 4th round. It's possible that maybe Prema have just unlocked this formula, and it's up to the others to actually catch up and deny Prema Power Team and Maxie Gunther victories for the rest of the year.
But it's probably not going to be as easy for the rest of the weekend, because, of course, he's one of his main championship rivals. Was right at the back of the grid for that one. And we know Joel Eriksson was quick in the free practice sessions yesterday, had the fastest time across the 2 sessions. So we'll see what this afternoon's qualifying brings. But Maxie Gunther, I don't think he's going to have quite such an easy run to the checkered flag for the rest of the weekend. He's going to have to fight for it, but he's well aware of that, I'm sure. It's Oliver Oakes from High Tech there with the dark hair, the team boss, and Prema. Well, I mean, they must have a factory full of trophies now, mustn't they, for all the success that they've had in this championship as both teams champions and drivers champions over the last 6 seasons. Apparently,
the trophy room is no longer a shed. It's actually it's bigger than the actual. Yeah, they've actually just they're now in the next town nearby.
I hope they've got it insured.
One thing I didn't mention there about Joel Eriksson, how he was coming from the back and got minor points. The team also, as we mentioned at the start of the program, they had a tyre pressure mistake going into qualifying yesterday. Well, they know that now.
Yeah.
They know not to make that mistake. They know not to have that same tyre pressure issue. So they're going to go into qualifying a lot more prepared, a lot more clued up. They're not going to make that mistake, and we're going to see the real pace of Joel Eriksson this afternoon.
Yeah, and what I loved about the team and the team boss was how open and honest he was. He said, I won't use the exact words that he used, but he said, yes, we messed up, hands up, we got it wrong. Not quite expressed like that, as you can imagine. Team's got a good use of the rather
paddock vocabulary.
Yeah, paddock vocabulary, the English language that you don't see in the dictionary. Yeah, he held his hands up. But confident for the rest of the weekend. Today's another day. So Maxie Gunther on the top step. There is Jake Hughes. He's an Aston Villa fan, but we won't talk too much about that. You can't have everything in life, can you? And Deruvla on the podium once again. What a fantastic young talent he is. And we now have our winner's national anthem. Sauntering onto the podium with a quick trip to pick up the team's trophy in a moment will be Prema once again, of course. And now it is time for the third time of the spin, us hearing the German national anthem for Maxie Gunther, who looks very controlled there. So the trophies will now be presented. Hankook caps on. They will run on the control tyre from Hankook, of course. 3 sets available to them for qualifying on the races. Oh, fantastic trophy there with a circuit map within a circle. It's a very different trophy, that, which is
quite like
nicely
that.
designed. Yeah, a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah.
To me, Lee, Maxie Gunther looks, he's not absolutely ecstatic like somebody who's, not expecting to win. That is the sort of stance, the posture of somebody who expected to win that race, isn't it?
That is a guy who is full of confidence, who knows everything is coming to him at the moment. He is driving superbly well. His relationship with the team is absolutely wonderful. His second year with the team, of course.
Yep.
Just Jake Hughes picking up his trophy for second place. And it'll be good to actually see Jake Hughes, his season finally get underway. He's had a troubling first few rounds, as the high-tech drivers, have had a troubling round. So it's good to see him get a podium. And Jan Deruvala, very, very good drive for the Indian today, and a very good showing for the rookie.
Julie Gatzi from the circuit and Manfred Sandblicker from Hankook presenting the trophies. And more good points, of course, for Prema in their hunt for another team title in this year's championship. I think most of the rounds have scored most points. Your top 2 drivers score your points for the team's championship. Prema lead Carlin, Motor Park in 3rd. Champagne time. More work to do, of course, for these drivers with qualifying to come.
I sincerely hope he has spare shirts because I've got I was once sprayed by that stuff by a driver who
only once. I haven't been there enough.
By a driver who was unfortunately I was in his sight, and that stuff does not go away easily. It sticks to you.
I've had some very long drives home having done podium presentations, not smelling or feeling particularly nice, sticking to the steering wheel as you go home. It's always the poor old team representative, the mechanic or the engineer, that gets it in the face as well, isn't it, from the drivers?
I mean, I feel for the cameraman who has to stand there and just get sprayed.
Yeah, cameramen do not like it when that stuff goes on their lenses. We'll wait for the rookie podium now. Now you can see, so it was beautiful at the start of the race. There are those black clouds which are appearing, and there is the chance, certainly around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, that we're going to get some rain here, which could be interesting for the rest of the day. I mean, the qualifying for Formula 3 isn't until 4:15, so I think they might be OK by then, as we get some highlights from the first of 3 races here this weekend at the Hungaroring.